My name's Kat and I'm a druid. I feel like I'm standing at AA meetings saying that. No, I've got coffee, it's fine. I'm here to talk about pagan history, and people used to ask me a lot about this because I'm a professional druid, and the joke was, how on earth can you be a professional druid? Because, you know, we're not in the Yellow Pages or whatever. And for those of you who read my stuff, I do say how it came about, which is I was in the NHS and unfortunately had to leave. And people said, well, you can't sign on what you're going to do, so why don't you do druidry? Because I was performing hand fastings and being a sort of normal pagan who helps out as and when. And I said, you can't be a professional druid, because really. And that was, what, 8 years ago? Something more than that. And now I'm so busy, and the reason simply is that if I couldn't do it, I couldn't do it if there was no call for it. Because people are clearly saying, right, we need druids, we need pagans, but we need nature-based religion priests, let's say. So whatever your flavour, so whether it's Wiccan or witchcraft or heathen or druid, whatever it is, we come under the pagan umbrella. And people in the world have now got a sense of what that means. And it's not charmed or the craft entirely. You know what I mean? I do get little goth girls coming and asking me things a lot, but that's okay. And I was one once. But it's more the thing now of paganism, while taking our nods from the oldest of religions and the ways of our ancestors, of course, we're trying to find our way in the 21st century as a modern religion, as a modern faith. And I really noticed it a few years ago when it was the census and everyone was being encouraged to put pagan dash. Do you remember? Mm. You were asked to put pagan dash heathen or pagan dash druid or pagan dash whatever. And not only, I think, were we the third highest of all the faiths who were listed, and I know Jedi was there as well, but it's the thing of the pagans were standing up to be counted. And now people say to me, when I'm on Radio Nottingham or Radio Derby, they say, well, there's not that many pagans, is there? I say, well, according to Ronald Hutton, there's so many 100,000 pagans in this country, according to that census. And that's just the ones who dared to put their name, because quite a few were obviously still in the closet, as it were. Quite a few people come to me and say, oh, I never realised I am pagan. You know, they feel the pull of the wild world, and more people do these days, but they didn't know there was a name for it, because they've not found it yet. So this is me going around talking about being a pagan and being a druid, and getting over the laughter parts. But meanwhile, I also, in the last year or so, I've been employed as a pagan chaplain in the prison service as part of the Pagan Federation. And the Pagan Federation is not just a Wiccan thing, which some people still think it's covering all pagans, but it represents pagans in the street, in the hospitals, in the prisons, in the schools, and I'm not banging the drum for them, but organisations like that, and like the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, the British Druid Order, so many different organisations are trying to come together and unfortunately bring pagans who don't like being in political groups into some sort of conjoined mass, almost, so that we come together to help each other. And it isn't saying we all believe the same thing, because quite often we don't, obviously. We believe very disparate versions of the same thing. But we still have to look after each other, and so we need a priesthood. And I go into my chaplaincy and typically have lunch with, let me get this right, a Church of England vicar, a Catholic priest, a Free Church lady, Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, 2 imams, you know, a Sikh gentleman. It's fabulous, and we all make the same jokes. We all have the same problems with our congregations, if you like, our parishioners. And you're seeing from the words that there isn't even a language as such, because the words I'm using are Christian words. You know, parishioners, you know, chaplains, it's a Christian foundation that we're working from, because Britain is largely a Christian heritage country. And I don't have a problem with that, because they've been at it for 1,000 years. You know, that's a foundation, and people have found a lot of truth in that and a lot of solace in that. But as many of you know, I'm sure, a lot of people have been in Christianity and had bad experiences, and a lot of them have come to paganism. And I went to Catholic school, so I wasn't Catholic, but I was a Church of England kid in a Catholic school. And it's terrifying. It's completely terrifying to go to Catholic Mass when you've no idea what's going on. But there are now pagans saying to people, well, there's us here, come and do this. And people go, okay, well, what do you do then? Do you meet on Sunday? No, we don't meet on Sunday. And people do say, I'm sure you've had it, what do you do, say, on the summer solstice? Can we film it? Can we come and have a look? And I go, not really. There's usually public rituals, but people are scared to come to something called ritual, because again, the language sounds, someone said once, Hammer horror. You know, people think pagan, they think Ursula Andress in a white dress lying on the table. The reality is me in exactly these clothes, usually, in an office in a prison, ministering to some troubled people. It's people sitting at a bedside in a hospital, ministering to someone who's very sick or even terminal. It's people, myself and my fella have gone into schools in full robes and gear, staffs and everything. The kids love it. Kids adore seeing a public pagan. They're like, oh my God, is it Harry Potter? But that's fine. Harry Potter, you know, Lord of the Rings, whatever it is, you get yelled at. We've had Wingardium Leviosa yelled at us, you know. But it's fine, because that's a way in, and that's a way you can say to people, no, but we do magic in a similar way. Here's what we do. And they love it, and they're so receptive to it, because we're standing up and being a priest, being a teacher, which is what a druid essentially is, but not in the standoffish, do what I say kind of way. But meantime, as I say, the language doesn't quite fit. We don't really have a word for, except pagan priest, but that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to everybody. I wrote an essay in a book called Paganism 101 about why I hate the term celebrant. Because a lot of pagans use that term and say, oh, I'm a celebrant, I minister to hand fastings and funerals and so forth. The celebrant is the partier, not the host, if you look in the dictionary. The celebrant's the person who goes into the party and enjoys himself, not the one who leads it, so it's wrong. But it's, to me, it's wussing out. It's essentially, we're not brave enough to stand up and say we're priests. But we are. I mean, I priest to people. And someone once said to me, well, why don't you get a dog collar? Why don't you get a green dog collar? People don't know what dog collars mean, for starters. The Christians all said to me, don't do that, they're really uncomfortable, they're plastic. But that's not what we're doing. We need an identifier as a priest, and so I'll wear something like this, which is robe-ish, or I'll have a pentagram around my neck. If I'm allowed, which I'm not in prison, but when I'm doing outside ritual, I'll have a staff. And some kind of signifier of your priest status, of your look at me, I'm in charge status. And for some people that's enough, that's what they get into paganism for. They think, okay, I want to do my first, second and third degrees and do the big noise on top of the hill, going, whoa! You know who I mean. I'm sure you've met people who are in it for the power. I was privileged to be at the Patricia Crowther event that was on in Nottingham a couple of years ago, and someone said to me, there's more third degrees in here than you can shake a stick at. Nobody was up themselves. Nobody had anything to prove, because they'd all been doing it that long, they were just friends, you know, and they weren't, oh, look at me, I'm a high priest, you know. Someone said that to me the other week. Oh. It's all very well being whatever title you want to give yourself. Someone said to me once, oh, you're a high priestess. Okay. As long as you call me something polite, I don't mind. That's fine. My name's Kat, call me that. But if you can't handle the job, don't step up and do it. Because people who get into this for the ego and the power, in a Clarkson sense, they generally can't handle the nitty-gritty. Because it's all very well standing and doing a ritual, which is one set of skills, but then when you do come to the actual ministry, to the chaplaincy, that's a very different set. And as I say, if you stand there and say, oh, I'm a high priest, I can do a ritual, I can summon the sun, I can draw down the moon, you know, whatever you want, I can do it. Okay, can you sit at the bedside of this guy who's really, really ill? they run. Because I've seen the emails that go around, usually when someone's in hospital and the word gets around saying, oh, can we get someone to go and visit so-and-so because they're really ill, and suddenly everyone goes quiet. And I don't know if that's just me or the groups I was in, but more people are now standing up, I'm very glad to say. But the point of the priesthood, at its heart, and the point of Druid priesthood, I would say, is to be a servant, and it's to serve your community. Yeah? You're not the big noise on top of the hill. Yes, people are looking at you because you're saying something that they want to hear, but that also means sitting quietly. It means sitting with someone's hand in yours, even if you're scared to touch them because the cancer might be contagious. Sometimes your animal brain worries like that. You have these strange little thoughts. I was holding a ritual in prison, and one of the guys was so grateful, he came up and gave me a big hug. And I was just, all the way home, I was just on a reel in my head going, I've been hugged by a murderer, I've been hugged by a murderer, I've been hugged by a murderer. He's lovely. You can't do that. We do not come with labels above our heads saying Druid or murderer or cancer patient or whatever it is. We are so many things, and we know that because we're pagans. I think we know that we have levels and we have layers. But as I say, we are people and we are fallible. And when we're asked to do something difficult, I mean, weddings are lovely to do, but funerals, a bit harder, you know? And we can learn an awful lot from our friends in the other faiths. And I've had people say to me, other ministers say, oh, so do you do naked ritual then? Which is different to the radio DJs who go, so, dancing naked under the moon. I just say you first. You'll hear it on Radio Nottingham on the solstice morning. Andy Whittaker has got a permanent bag on with me, and if he sees this video, he'll laugh. But he always says it, he makes a point of saying it, because it's so ludicrous for a British person in all their Britishness to be standing out naked under the sun. But if you do that, you can. I have done. Some of us here very likely have. But that's not what it's about. That's not the point. You know? You can do ritual in jeans and a t-shirt, or whatever you want. Oh, sorry. The point is we learn from what we have to explain to other people, whether they're lay people or other ministers, if you like, that they can then teach us. And they say, how about this? How do you deal with the laying out of a corpse, for example? What do you do for the family at a time like that? And I've been reading an awful lot of books by an awful lot of different ministers who've written about this now, because people want to know. And it's fascinating because you think, oh, they all learnt this in seminary school, they all learnt this in university, and they've been through the motions because their religion has been going on long enough for them to be a teaching thing, and an accredited teaching thing as well. So you'll get your theology professors and so forth, you'll get your ministers who really know their stuff. We have courses, of course. We have courses everywhere. I run a course. But each one has its own particular focus, like your witchcraft course, I imagine, yeah? I teach people about Druidry. Other people teach about whatever their specialism is. But it might not necessarily teach people skills. So you might not know how to talk to someone who's in extreme grief. I mean, I've written about depression and suffering from depression, which means that I know it's still difficult, but I do know at least how to talk to people who are suffering through bad times. Whereas, for example, my mum will run a mile. She doesn't know, she'll just run off and make the tea, which is fine. Again, that's a very British thing, that's our tradition, but you need more. You need someone to sit by you that you can trust. And you need also that priest's skill of listening and not talking, because that I love that it comes into the witchy thing of to know and to be silent, because sometimes we have to be silent. We can't pass on what we've been told. We don't sit in confessional, but we kind of do, really, don't we? We're not in a little booth. We sit with someone, we see them face to face. We can't tell what we hear. And sometimes I really wish I could, but you have to get permission to do that. You have to say, look, I know you're feeling this way. Can I tell someone? I think you really need help. And sometimes they'll say no, in which case you can't. And you've got to deal with that. And I've spoken with pagan priests and priestesses who've been doing this far longer than me, and they said, yeah, they've had to learn it by bootstraps because there's no one really teaching those kind of skills other than, say, sociology courses or psychology or counselling and that kind of thing. But they do it in a very secular way. They do it completely straight down the line. You do not mention ministry. So it's very difficult. On the one hand, you have the books from the priests, which have got a lot of Bible verses in, which I find a little bit grating personally. Then you've got the people just saying, oh, it's psychology, it's this theory, this Freudian, this Jungian, blah, 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 which is fine again, but we're coming up with a new thing, and I'm seeing this a lot. Pagans are coming up with a mixture of the people skills and the religious skills, the spiritual skills. And we don't really have any courses for that yet, I don't think. I'm sure it comes into the proper, I would say probably the Wiccan third degree. I haven't done that, but from what I hear, I would imagine it was going on. And some of the deeper, the more advanced courses, you learn more advanced skills. It's working with people. And if you've ever been in a, say, a troubled group or a troubled coven, you'll know how it's not done right sometimes. And people said to me, oh, we need a pagan police. I said, we've got one. It's called the police. And then you've got Andy, the lovely chap from the Police Pagan Association. You know, they exist. There are pagans in the police too. There are people you can talk to. We are getting everywhere. We're like a rash. And it's wonderful because we are taking all the skills we have in our jobs and however our calling is in life, we are taking that and using our spirituality in that. So people now come to me and say, well, okay, you're talking about this. How can I learn? And I say, right, it's still bootstraps. But someone came to me on Saturday at the Staffordshire Pagan Conference and said, okay, I've been a teacher in prison. I'm security cleared. I'd love to do the ministry as well. What do I do? I say, you go to the Pagan Federation website, there's the prison ministry site, you will fill out a ton of forms, which are sort of, you have to fill them out to prove that you really want to do it. And then you do it. But there are other pagan chaplains who you can ask advice of, who've been doing it longer. They might not have been in exactly that situation you've been in, but they'll have been roughly that way. And then I start thinking as I'm telling someone this, and I say, well, when I first started Druidry, I was told that the Druid stands at the edge of the forest of knowledge, and people want to go in and they want to find their path, and the Druid goes, your path's that way. I say, well, come with me. So, well, I can come with you up to a point, but you've got to walk your own path. Yeah, your path is unique. And sometimes I'm there saying, right, there's your path, you go. You've been a teacher and now you want to be a minister, okay, there you go. And sometimes I'm going, get in there. And you know you want to do this, you know you have this calling to help people, but you're scared because, okay, it's daunting, it's very daunting. But this is how we are forming our ministry, this is how we're forming our pagan, whatever the word is going to be, because we haven't got one. Our language is not sufficient. And I'm sure we'll come up with something. There's probably the archaeologists come up with something as they find something lovely about ancient pagan priests. But in the meantime, we're here doing whatever we do. And I'm sure if you've been in any public pagan group, you've had people on the phone to you at midnight going, oh, no. You know, my husband's left me, whatever it is. You know, I've had that this week. If you put yourself out as a pagan, you put yourself generally out as a caring person, and people will call you. And even just friends. And that's when you're sort of, you don't say to them, oh, go away and sleep. You know, you say, right, okay, I'll be on my way. I've got an emergency bag, you know what I mean? Which is like, right, grab, off we go. And this is it, this is part of what I signed up for. And not everyone does, of course. Some people want to be just pagans in their own solitary practice, and that's completely fine. That's lovely and wonderful. And that's where people are exploring where their path leads. That's fine. But some people do want to move further and to be called to teach or to help or whatever that is. And that's what I try and help people to explore and say, well, you can sign up for this, you can maybe investigate that. The lovely lady who was asking me about death midwifery just before I started is a new thing which is really gaining legs because pagans dying as well, surprise. We live, we die. It's part of life. And as pagans, we recognise that balance. Yeah? I've done funerals, and people are very nervous because they think, oh my God, pagan funeral. Raised glass. But it's becoming a thing now. There's a chap called Christopher Hughes who runs the Anglesey Druid Order and runs a lot of death midwifery courses because in his job, he's a mortuary technician. And so it's his job. He's been doing it for 20 odd years, I think. Sorry, Chris. I'm giving his age away. But it's his job and his calling. So he ministers to people, he lays them out and makes them everything they would want to be as in their last party, if you like. And then they celebrate life and they celebrate the death. You say, right, you've passed on to the next stage and remember all the good stuff. And it's holding people's hands at the times like that. And it's bloody hard. Of course it's hard. But it's incredibly rewarding as well. And it's not for everybody, but it's definitely something that you can do if you feel called to do so. My first step into that, I only do funerals as a priest, if you like. I don't do the death midwifery. But when I was working for the NHS, I was put in charge of end-of-life care. And that's those do not resuscitate forms that you see on the news every so often. And they got sent to me, and I had to sort them and tick people off when they died, you know? So you're a number. And I couldn't do it. And I did the job, and then I took a note of the names, and we went out every month or so, and I would do a ritual for those names, and I would remember them. And I would light a candle for each of those names. And as I said the names out loud, I could feel wherever I was filling up with these spirits. And some of them were fine, and some of them didn't know what was going on. But it was ushering them to the next stage, whatever that would be for them. And I asked Chris what he did, and he gave me some ideas. And I worked with some of the gods of the dead. I worked with Aran, the Celtic god of the dead, and asked for his help in ushering these people wherever they needed to go. Because, of course, very few of them were pagans, if any. Most of them were nothing. Most of them had nothing on their religious affiliation. But every time we did it, you could feel those people, right, the light's lit, there's someone here remembering you. You can move on now, it's okay. And they would go. And it's the same as, it's the other side of the birthing process. You are birthing them into the next stage. And I've not had to do that since because that's no longer my everyday job. But it left a powerful impression on me, of course. And so I can say to people, right, this is what it is, this is the reality. You can, oh, I don't believe in ghosts. Okay, but you can remember people. You know, if you've met people who've had a bereavement, everyone knows someone who's gone. And you remember their name, you remember the feel of them, you remember the smell of their perfume. You know? It's remembering, it's honouring. And this is part of being pagan, this is part of being a priest. We sit with people, we remember them, we honour our ancestors. Sometimes these are the most recent ancestors, you know, our parents, our grandparents, cousins, you know. We remember them. But not only that, I actually had my mum call me a while ago saying, yeah, Nan's getting on a bit. Yes, she's 92. She's very deep into dementia. She doesn't know what's going on at the moment, unfortunately, but she does remember sometimes because she complimented me on my knitting, because she taught me. And she was really pleased with it, which was wonderful. But we had that connection. And Mum said, well, that stuff you do, can you do Nan? Can you do Nan's funeral? Nan was Church of England to the core. She still is, she's still here. But it's more the thing of, okay, this is going to be not so much pagan as just natural, you know? I don't know the humanist funeral ceremony at all, I'm not a humanist. But it would be doing what you are doing for that person. You are priesting for that person and their wants and needs, and the people who remain and what they're expecting. So it wouldn't be appropriate for me to stand up there in full robes and cool quarters, which I've done in the crematorium. And that's not the thing. It's basically, I would be finding a Bible reading and getting someone to do that and, you know, going from there. I do that in in the prisons I have my pagan group, but I have so many different people come to me and talk and just want to discuss usually their own particular upbringing of theology. And it's not always easy, as you say. It's Christians have had a very hard time, usually in convent-based education and perhaps on levels and things like that. But they're happy to talk to someone who's not going to judge them. And that's the priesting side. You're just sitting and listening. And sometimes I just think, I'll be exhausted, I'll be so tired at the end of it. And that's the point where the people who advised me said, right, okay, you need time for you as well. And I have to go minister myself. And I talk to my gods. And I talk to them in English. I don't do all these and thous. Oh my God, help. And the other day I was speaking to a very troubled man in prison, and I just quietly went, lady, are you there? And she was helping. And it helps to have that bit of spine. You know, that bit of oomph of, I know someone's got my back, it's all right. And I got home and just went and lay down, and our cat just came and sat on me right there. And went, okay, what do you need? Just purred and licked, and I'm like, and you feel better because that's how it goes. And this is how we're forming our ministry, I think. We're making it up as we go along, but we're making it up based on realities, but very much in front of our faces. This is not paganism airy-fairy, this is paganism tangible and messy. I mean, Chris talks about it in his books, that death is very undignified. When you die, it rarely in your sleep. Nice. It's difficult. When you're dealing with divorce, it's difficult. When you're dealing with, I've sat with a lady who's had a miscarriage. It's so hard. But you do it honestly, and you do it in good spirit. You honour them, and in doing so, you honour everything around what they're going through. It's not, I'm sure you've seen vicars who sort of turn up and go, yeah, okay, right, okay, and leave. And I actually haven't met one like that, I'm really pleased to say. I remember them from school, but the priests that I work with now all want to do it because they genuinely want to help people. And because we're in such a secular society, I think it does take that special kind of person to step up. And that's what we're finding. We're finding people who are really very strong in their hearts. And they say, right, okay, I'm not going to knock on your door and share my great words. I'm just going to sit with you and chat and say, okay, how about this, how about that? You know? Sometimes I say to people, the biggest, my personal cure for when you feel absolutely as low as you can get and you're feeling, right, I don't want to go on, is make a cup of tea. It's that British thing again. It's like, right, go make a cup of tea. Someone taught me a little spell of just put energy into a glass of water, yeah, and then drink it down. You know, that's that simple beginning of Wiccan 101 book spell. And some people just need that, and they need someone holding them while they do it. Or they need primal screen therapy out in the backyard. I've done that. I've done getting naked in a thunderstorm as well, that's also fun. But my garden isn't overlooked, so that's all right. Now I'm saying that on film, so people are going to be crowding around. Or running away, I don't know. But it's an exploratory journey. It is finding our path through the forest. And when we step up to help others along the way, I think that's an amazing thing. And I think it shows we're maturing as a faith. I know we're not technically a religion. We're too sort of all over the place for that. But it's as near as we can get. And we are maturing. We are coming to step up and say, right, we want to really do this. We're not playing. It's not all crystals and fairy wings. It's fine to dress up and have fun, but there are serious sides too. And that's what being a priest means. You know, it's having the fun times and leading the dance, if you're doing that around the fire. But it's also the tricky bits. So ministry is your ups and downs, but it reflects life. And I think paganism does that. I think Druidry, certainly for me, it's what inspires you to keep going and inspires you to explore in your life and to be curious. And that's what got me into this. It keeps me going, really. So, that's the basics. What do you think?
Fascinating.
Some people say, oh yes, I want to do this. And I'm like, right, brace yourself. It's not easy, it's really hard.
Okay, here's one. How could you get more involved in doing this like ministry stuff? It sounds really, really very interesting.
It's really good. As I say, the prison ministry, it's on, if you look at the Pagan Federation prison ministry, you'll see all the details on there. And the Pagan Federation are the ones doing it because they're the ones who talk to NOMS, the National Offender Management Service. There's a lovely lady called Helene Mobius who's written for Pagan Dawn, and she speaks to government on behalf of pagans in prison because they're still part of our community. You know, they need their representation. They cannot have any officer come to them and deny them their right to worship or deny them their right to have a pentagram. Recently in the news there was a case of a gentleman whose Book of Shadows was impounded when he was moved between jails, and of course that's now being looked at, and PF are standing up for them because that's like taking someone's Bible away.
Yeah.
So it's about educating and creating understanding, but it's all there. If you want to do hospital visiting, again the PF do that, but also, to be honest, if you just go into your local hospital, I know Queens and City are both incredibly open to visitors because they just want volunteers, they're so short. But it's just having someone to call if there's someone who turns up and says, I'm pagan, I'd really like someone to sit with me. Because there's been cases, I think in Derby, of someone who said that and they ended up waking up to a Catholic priest giving them the last rites or something, which is actually a violation of their human rights, big style. But it's not appropriate. I'm sure that Catholic felt really awkward. But I hope. But now there's a lady doing Nottingham, I know for a fact. Derby tend to lose the names and addresses of people who help, but they tend to come back to me or Bran, Chattering Magpie, because we were PF volunteers there for so long, so they tend to come to us. And we'll find someone in the locality who can help. Going into schools, again, if you hear about a local school who's having a multi-faith day, say, oh, do you want us to come and do a talk? And I'll just take in a big picture of the Wheel of the Year and talk it through, because it's great fun. They can all relate to that, because each ceremony, someone once said, it's a great big year of parties, isn't it? I was like, yeah, pretty much. But it's about understanding our connection with the world and the year, so they've never thought about it like that before. And that's incredibly accessible, and it's not scary to the teachers listening either. So, it's...
So presumably if you're going to go into these places, especially schools, you need some sort of certification or authority.
Yes.
Yeah.
The schools, it's generally the integrity of the school, I've noticed. I am fully security cleared because I go into prisons, obviously. But I believe local councils now do your security clearance. I think Ashley was actually trying to do it as well. Ashley Mortimer was trying to sort out something for pagan volunteers. So I don't know how far along he got with that, but probably...
He's talking to local PF leader interfaith as well.
Yeah, I think so.
He's getting on it, but he's been down at Brighton for the last sort of 10
He's
months.
been busy, yeah, understandably. But it's the thing of basically if the PF somehow can cover the cost of your clearance, then that would be obviously awesome. But it's again finding that legitimacy to the local council, because rocking on up and saying, hi, I'm a pagan and I want to be security cleared, that was going to work. But we're working on it and it is happening. And if anyone's got security clearance, then you're already, your foot's in the door. So, if not, there are ways we can try and get it. So it's happening.
By security clearance, are you talking about the disclosure of fire service?
I think so, yeah. I had to do, it felt like they were taking my inside leg measurements for prison, you know, it was every single bit of information. But I believe for schools it's not quite that involved.
Yeah, there are 3 levels.
That's right, yeah. But the basic one for the council is you to work with just kids in schools or volunteer community groups and things like that. Last time I looked, it was £30 to £60, and it was basic, and you could get it done through the council. So.
But do you have to pay for as a volunteer?
As I say, at the moment, I think you do, but we're working on trying to find ways for the PF to help with that.
If you've already got DBS clearance through your work, would that transfer?
Yeah, it would, absolutely. They'll ask for proof of it, but obviously that's on file somewhere and that's easily found. So, yeah.
On top of the safety clearance, surely the hospitals, schools, prisons, etc. are not just going to say, oh yeah, let's some random pagan
oh, no,
you've never heard of before.
That's right.
Yeah, if you want to volunteer, you've got your clearance, that's great, come on in.
Yeah.
They don't know you from Adam, they have no idea what experience or level of
you'll have to fill in
understanding
forms.
you've got. So you have to surely
Yeah.
have some sort of
a accreditation, essentially.
Yeah,
I know it's horrible.
Like a note from the PF to say, yes, we know this person's been around for a while and has got a decent standing.
You will have to fill out forms
community.
to give your own experience, which is really hard to put down in writing when you start thinking about it. But they'll also ask for references.
Yeah.
I got mine from President Mike Steigel of the PF because he was fine with that. If you've got like a coven leader or someone who's accredited in some way and a recognised leader in their field, that can be done. So if you've worked with a particularly noteworthy group, say you've worked with the Loyal Arthurian Warband, I'm sure King Arthur would give a reference. Do you know what I mean? It's as long as it's recognisable leader in the field is the phrase, then you can get a reference signed off on that. Sometimes they ask for professional reference as well, as in a previous employer or like a passport, you know, a doctor or someone. So, I mean, I've signed off on people before, and it's because I've been doing this so long, I've got that accreditation.
Yeah, because you're well known, aren't you?
I'm well known, but because I've got that security clearance as well. So I actually have also worked, I've worked for the NHS, I've worked for the police in Derbyshire and the Met, so I've been cleared for yonks. So. It's giving it that legitimacy, isn't it? Because, as you say, you can't say, I'm a random pagan. It's very nice to have well-meaning visitors, and to be honest, in hospitals, sometimes they will just say, yes, we need all the visitors we can get, we just need friendly people. But they do still have to check you're not a lunatic. So if you're security cleared, that's your first hoop to jump through.
I wonder what's in your emergency bag. Is it chocolate?
Chocolate. I'm so all for the Dementors of Banished by Chocolate. I am totally for that, and I use lint.
That's right.
Or green packs. What do they have in the emergency bag? In winter, we had a spade and blankets and, you know, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, in the winter, because we get snowed in. Yeah. It's just in case we need to zoom to someone, we can't make it all the way, in all honesty. The immediate ritual kit that I've got is a makeup bag, which I got free off the front of some magazine. And it's got tea lights, and I've always got matches and a lighter, because one of them won't work. Small incense sticks. There's a shop called Hunky Dory in Belper that do little natural British-based incense sticks. They fit really nicely. Sometimes people want god or goddess images, so I did take those, but I've kind of fallen away from doing that because you tend to use the ones that people have themselves, or you make them yourself. In hospital, it's difficult to have incense, so sometimes just a scented oil that you can dab on someone. Whatever you think you need for ritual, whatever your mnemonics are that you think will help people, but keep it simple. It really is. That's true. Electric candles are good, but they tend to... Yeah, that's right. I was going to say, I did use them in ritual, they tend to short out because they're electric. But yeah, I've been reminded, we've got an emergency kit in the back of the car for us, which has got chocolate and raw bars, and I like cherry Coke for a quick jolt of caffeine and sugar to keep me going. And I know it's horrible, but it seems to do the job. It's whatever, bottles of water, whatever you can use. And it's whatever tools suit you, really. For ages, when I seem to be doing a lot of ministry with the dead, there's a shop, again in Belper where I live, there's a shop which does lots of mini alcohols, so you can get miniature pretty much anything. And I had a whole load of mini whiskies, because I would raise a glass to the dead. I would do this in cremes and, you know, wherever it was called upon to do so. I'd pinch a shot glass from someone and raise a glass. I had a cigar for a while because, again, the cigar smoke seems to work well with the dead, and that's from the voodoo tradition. I picked that up, and that really actually works. Like a really good human cigar, which you only need a little bit of because it's very, very heady. But it works for some people, and that's what they like. Again, not in hospitals. In prisons, I'd get jumped for that, I tell you. But in prisons, I'm very limited by what they're allowed. I mean, recently, another pagan chaplain was allowed mead to be taken in, and the same spirit as communion wine is taken in. And communion wine is sherry. Okay, it's about 18%, and sometimes they use grape juice or something, but most of the time they use sherry. And we go, well, we can use mead then, right? So she got mead in, and we went, right, precedent. And at Imolc, I took in some very nice mead for my guys, and they were really, really happy. They were so happy because they'd not had alcohol for however many years, and it was good. And it was part of the celebration. The prison laid on food, which they are happy to do. And all the guys keep saying, can we have a hog roast? No, you can't. You can have a sliced pork. And recently we've been allowed to go outside. In one of the prisons I'm at, they've got a pagan circle, which the gardening detail have actually created. And the quarters are made of different coloured stones, different gravels. Another one, they haven't got a pagan circle yet, they're looking into it, but we went out on a football pitch with an officer and did ritual on some astroturf, which was really weird under your feet, I'll tell you. But it was wonderful because they'd never had that before, they'd never been allowed, and it made it so much more special. And again, it's like taking a very, very ill person to a window and just opening it and feeling that fresh air. You know, it's bringing the outdoors indoors. And we do what we can with what we can. You know, obviously I can't break the law, but I can do what I can within the boundaries. So, it's all fun. Go on.
Okay, this is a more serious one. You talked earlier about when you're ministering to people and you hear things that are quite difficult to deal with, quite painful, and the ministry, the pagan ministry, is not long enough established yet for you to have a system where, for example, counsellors have supervision.
That's right.
Where they can talk to people.
Yeah.
Have you managed to put in place something like that, for example, with colleagues?
Generally, in the prison ministry, that's there because we recently had our first, no, I think it was the second actually, my first, but meet-up of all the Pagan Federation chaplains in the UK. We all met at prison training headquarters. And that was wonderful because you get to meet all these people you've met on Facebook and whatnot. But it's knowing that those people are there is wonderful. But I go to people who are my teachers. I go to people who are my friends. Once I just happened in passing to mention to Caitlin Matthews on Facebook, who's a friend on there, and she said, "Oh, I'm on Skype now. I've just poured a cuppa. Do you want to have a chat?" And so we had a Skype chat about it all. And she obviously has been doing this for much longer than me. And it's having that experience. But I've been given a lot of advice of how to debrief, essentially, which is what it is. And I've got a little microphone which I put on my lapel. And when I'm driving home from prison, say, I've got an app on my phone and I'll dictate to myself what just happened. And I haven't transcribed them, they're just there if I want them. But it lets me tell that story and get that out and breathe a bit. And then when I come home, I'm changing clothes usually, I'll have a bath or something and wash it out. Sometimes I'll be so het up, I'll walk the dogs or I'll run with the dogs even. And it's whatever you need to do. You learn your own systems for what you need. Sometimes it's crashing out. Usually after a big ritual, for example, with lots of people, I'll just go home and fall over. And fortunately I have backup in my husband helping me out. And it's as long as you've got enough energy to get you home, and then you can fall over. But then, again, it's talking to deity, it's talking to whoever you feel will help you, whoever you know to work with to help. And I think in the future there will be more of an organised system, as you say, of counsellors and whatnot, but we all have friends in the community and we know who we can call on and who we can't. And I think that's a wonderful thing as it is, you've got all these friends, often who I haven't met in person, I've only met over Facebook or something like that, but it's still there. So, it does exist.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I just want to say that I just think that's great because I can understand the question, but Margaret's question to you. But there's so much of that in society now that so many people can't just get a simple someone to talk to and to listen to them without having to go to some overqualified person who may not even have the life experience.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of people in society like us pagans who have those skills and those talents, abilities, whatever, that haven't got those qualifications. But those talents and skills are still valuable.
That's
and
right.
needed.
Yeah.
And that's the way of doing it.
Sometimes listening is a skill that people should have and don't, if you know what I mean. Some teachers are very bad listeners, but some are really excellent. And you know if you could do it, I think people will come to you for that. But one day, last year, I was walking the dogs in the park, and an old gentleman that I meet with his dog, he knows I do chaplaincy, and he suddenly started talking to me about an illness he just got through, and how he'd actually had a near-death experience in the hospital. We're walking the dogs on a Sunday morning, do you know what I mean? I'm just in the park throwing a ball. And clearly he saw something in me, and he was able to just unload and just have that. And my mindset changed. Again, it's very much like ritual work. You put yourself into the mindset of priest, which is not the big hat in the robe, it's just a mindset. It's changing consciousness at will, literally. And just listening, saying it's all right. And he was actually scared, as it turned out. He was scared something mad had happened because he'd had that near-death experience and seen his ancestors, and they went, it's not time yet. And he thought he was going bonkers. And I mean, no, they're still, isn't it crazy to think that people wouldn't keep an eye on you? Of course your ancestors keep an eye on you. And they're there, and that's no bad thing, is it? Okay, I suppose not. Half of what I do is say to people, it's all right to feel the way you feel. But that's life, isn't it? We often feel, I get it, certainly, it's like, I'm really sorry, I'm so depressed, don't I say that. It's giving them permission to spill their guts. However they want to, however messy it is. I love that metaphor because it really is usually several hankies involved. Even before weddings, I've had brides call me up, going, I can't find a dress, I got one off eBay, it's rubbish. Yeah, it does happen. There's nothing you could do, but you're just listening to them down the phone and going, it's all right, it'll work out. And it does, and of course it does. And people credit me with making it work out. Oh, you worked your magic. No, things work out. But thank you for thinking that, that's very nice. I have tremendous faith in the powers that be, whoever we call them, that things work out for a reason. And things do fall into place. And I see it often, I see it so often that I can't think, I don't know what coincidence is anymore, but it's a wonderful thing, and I feel honoured a lot of the time to be able to do this for people, because it's very humbling. We are putting ourselves out as servants to others who call on us, and it's very tiring. You can get very irritated. Like, oh, I've told you this before. But people, you need to listen to however many times they want to say it. And actually, what I heard a while ago was, have you seen the pictures going around at the moment of little girls at Disneyland being hugged by princesses? There's an autistic lad, and he went up and was hugged by Snow White, and you can see his face, he just falls in love with her in the moment. And there's a convention, there's a little girl who's being hugged by Superman. You know, it's a cosplayer of Superman. And it's having that connection to something you love, and having that connection. The Disney people tell the staff they have to hold on that hug as long as that hug is necessary. You don't let go, you're not the first one to let go. And I hold that a lot. It's the thing of you hug someone, you wait till they're ready to let go. Because sometimes that takes a while. But that's okay, all you end up is a wet shoulder, it's fine. You can do that. So, one more, I'm being time.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I've got a few more questions. I'll perhaps have to
I'm hanging around
later.
afterwards, that's fine.
But one thing that I would like to know is you say that you've been able to not work for anyone else doing this. I would love to give up my job, but I cannot physically, financially afford to. And every time this issue of we need pagan ministers for the hospitals and the prisons and what have you comes up in this area, I think, I'm already doing half of it. I do open rituals, I do talks and workshops, and after every one I get a barrage of people saying, how can I do this, help me out with this, can you do this for me? And I am kind of like an agony.
You could do it full time.
Love, but I don't get paid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a fun one.
I need to pay my wage.
No, absolutely.
No,
it's true. I put this on Facebook every so often, and I speak about Facebook a lot because I find it very useful for reaching out across the world to people, and that's the reason we're videoing this, is that a lot of people have said we can't physically get to Nottingham doing this. But I ask for equal remuneration for my work. I do so much voluntary work, but at the end of it, the prison work pays, they pay by the hour and they pay mileage. Hospitals, it's volunteering. Schools, generally it's volunteering, but you can ask for your travel. Talks, I charge travel, or I say donations. And you know what? I've never been shortchanged. I have never been shortchanged. And I went and gave a talk at Leicester Pagan Federation group, and they gave me something like a hat that round, an actual hat, and I got about 50 quid, which is way more than I would have charged. And it's wonderful. And I charge for weddings, which helps immensely, and funerals. And funeral charges are usually eaten up by the insurance, so that's fine, that's covered. And I have a partner whose wage helps support us as well. But generally, I find that the money comes. You know, I've got a Patreon account now. I don't know if you've heard of those. Patreon, it's for creative people who put up, I'm doing this creative thing, and if you back me sort of from $1 up, then I can do that thing. You are funding me to do that thing. So it's like a crowdfunding. And I get so much of that from people who actually want to support me. And people just contribute like $1, which is about 60p. Some people are like $20 or whatever, because it's an American thing. And that pays for my office rent, because I keep a little office in Ripley. And I've said it, if people didn't support me doing this, I couldn't do it. I'd have to go and get a job. But the prison work helps fund and pay the bills, you see, because it's not bad money, because it's a skilled position. So it is possible to do it now, but as I read in a children's book years ago, there's no such thing as a rich witch. You won't make your fortune doing it. I mean, people said to me and other pagan authors, oh, but you've got books, so you must be rich.
It's not 10% of what we don't get 10% royalty on the cover price. Let's put it that way.
You know, yeah. When you don't know. Everyone says, oh, but you must be like J.K. Rowling. So, what is it? 1% of people, of authors, get that much money, and it's J.K. Rowling, Stephen King, and oh god, one of the thriller writers. But it doesn't happen to normal writers, does it? We're struggling writers in a garret. But it can be done. Sometimes I'm seeing more people now saying I can go part-time and do my paganism the rest of the time. You know? So, whoa, our phone's gone off. But no, it's getting more possible because the world out there is starting to realise that remuneration is necessary. Because while people say you should do this for the joy of it and the love of it, my bank manager doesn't take that for my mortgage, and I can't fill the car with peace and love. I have got hybrid, that's what I do. But it's something we need to do in the world. And some people come to me and say, I can't afford to pay you, but can you help me with it? And I will get given things. I've got so much lovely stuff in the house that people have given me that helps me out. I get given incense and things, I get given candles. People make me things, and that again doesn't pay the mortgage, but it helps me immensely, and that helps in the work. Because usually something will come up at the right time, and then I'll find a way to use it pretty soon. And you see that synchronicity really happen. And I know it sounds airy-fairy, but what I'd say is put it out there, really put the intention out there that, okay, universe, come on, I want to do this for a living, make it happen. And I lost my job, you know, I was forced out of my job and had to do it. And that first year was really blooming difficult, wasn't it? And my dad was supporting as well at that point. But we managed, and I think not living in London also helps, because you can live in the East Midlands and not be, you know, hand to mouth. But try and see, put word out, and, you know, take little steps, and soon you'll find that, I'm sure you'll find that your days will be full up with that, but you can actually get a little bit back for it to help pay your way. So it's worth a try. I've said often that it's the same as our ancestors. If you had a baker who was crap, no one would buy his bread, and he would have to make a different job than baker. If you're a druid and you're crap, then no one will come to you. So people are still coming to me, which says to me that I'm doing something right. And so we go on. And I never know. I mean, some months I get to the end of the month and think, oh, what's happening? Oh, I've not got enough. And something will come up. It really will. I'm not saying that to sound fluffy. It does genuinely come in. I'll get a call from someone saying, can you help with this? Can you help with this wedding, this naming? Do some tarot readings, whatever it is, and that'll get us by. So.
So we just about break even most months
I think
and
we do. Yeah,
get by.
we do.
That's-
And this is something I do speak of. He works for the ambulance service still. And I've said it, that you go round in your Ovatic green healing people. You know, he's got his Druid Ovatic green uniform on. He goes around, and you've come home and said, oh, I've done some proper job, I've done some priesting to someone. You've helped people who are right at the end of their rope, haven't you? And they just need someone to talk to. You know, how many people in the NHS do that? That's priesting, you know? So,
What about like old people's homes?
that's, yeah, absolutely.
Do you do that?
I don't, but I know people who do.
Yeah.
And again, it's helping people, usually it's dementia people, dementia patients, and it's just learning how to work with them and to be happy with them. People have suggested to me, because I knit, they've said, oh, those little muffs that you make for dementia patients. That's right. And do these and different kinds of things for people. There's all ways we can help. But I've not been called to do that, but I'm sure it'll come up at some point. I never say never.
Can we take a break now?
We can take a break because we're being kicked off a cup of tea, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
The boil.
Okay, thank you.